just asking you guys to go back over the concepts from yesterday, basically. One about memory, one about forgetting. So does anyone want to say what the stages of memory are that info has to pass through? There was 3 of them. There's also... Yeah?
Sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term.
Yep, so sensory memory is that stage where all the information that our brains have taken in gets compiled, and then it gets sorted out. The pertinent, important information then gets sent to our short-term memory stage, and then if we make a conscious effort to remember that information, it then gets sent into our long. Alright, can somebody tell me what the 3 key reasons that we forget info are? What are the 3 reasons why information can become lost? Yeah.
Failure to encode, failure to retrieve, and storage forget.
Awesome. So failure to encode is when the memory or the information just doesn't get put away correctly. It doesn't get ingrained deep enough within our brains. Failure to retrieve is at some point as we try to go access that information, something is stopping us. And then storage decay is, as our brains get older, we naturally lose our ability to retain information. Awesome. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and go into our word of the day. So if you guys could go ahead and get out your worksheets.
Find it?
Yeah. Alright, so our word of the day today is crux. Crux, meaning the main point or core. The crux of an argument is the main point or the purpose of your argument. So can anyone come up with some synonyms, some other words that we might be able to use in place of crux? Yeah.
Center.
Center. Yep. The center crux of the argument. Any other synonyms? Yeah.
Focus.
The focus. Very good. Yes, the focus. All right. How about antonyms? Can anyone come up with a word that would mean the opposite of crux? I think this one's a little hard. Yeah.
The support.
The support. Okay. Yeah. I like that.
Maybe the edge.
Edge.
Like instead of the center, the edge.
Edge. I like that. All right. Does anybody know the part of speech of crux? Yeah.
Noun.
Noun. Yeah, I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. These always confuse me.
Mm-hmm.
I need to brush up on my grammar.
Nouns are more difficult to come up with synonyms and especially antonyms.
All right. And what type of sentence are they?
We are doing, remember Bloom's taxonomy? Remember global cultures, beginning of the school syllabus handouts, the Bloom's taxonomy verbs. Let's go ahead and let's go the opposite end of the spectrum. So we did the top left-hand corner for that box. Remember that first one? Let's do the bottom right. So I think it's either a synthesis or evaluate down at the bottom. Sound good? You gotta choose a verb from that box plus crux plus the sentence context.
All right. And then so for our sentence context today, we're going to be talking about this new concept that's coming out of Sweden where people are getting paid to do nothing. So there's this job that's become available in a train station in Gothenburg, Sweden, that's going to pay you to literally sit around and do nothing. So it's a salary of over $2,300 a month where you basically come in, turn the lights on, and then sit there and do nothing. And then at the end of your shift, you turn the lights off and go home. And basically what the thought concept behind this is it's like a commentary on how automation is being, like how it's making humans kind of like irrelevant. Like most of the jobs that are out there, and especially within the next 50 to 100 years, most of our jobs are going to be taken away by technology. So it's kind of this idea like, are humans going to be okay with sitting around and doing nothing? So, real quick, what do you guys think? Do you guys think you could work a job where you just sit around and like get paid to do nothing? No? Yeah. years on that job?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah, how long do you think you worked that job?
Forever.
Forever? I like your enthusiasm,
I think they allow them to have Netflix and.
Yeah, you can, you don't even, I don't believe you even have to stay. I think you have to stay there, but you just have to like have a human there, because you're operating the train station's running automatically. You're just there as like a potential, if anything goes wrong, you're there to save the day, I guess.
I think you can take a nap too.
Yeah, it says you can take a nap, you can call, read a book, do all kind of. So yeah, so basically we're going to use that as our sentence context. So if you want to look at it through automation, if you want to look at it through jobs of the future, maybe a career that you want, or if you're like Chance and you just want to get paid to sit around and do nothing. Which sounds it sounds awesome, but it's not. You got a good sentence?
No. It's just okay.
Is it still snowing?
Yeah.
This is absurd.
Gotta do something.
You remember yesterday I was saying how like everyone forgets how to drive?
Yeah.
Yes.
On the
my
way,
gosh.
on 24 today, I saw the same car put it in the ditch twice.
Yeah.
Like, put it in the ditch, somehow got out, we go another like 100 yards, and they do it again. It's like, are you kidding? I didn't see if they got out the second time.
Yeah.
That's just starting to stop driving.
That's no good. I'm sure there was a lot of people. I saw, like, the roads in Washington, they like didn't do anything. They just like went over them. No plow, no nothing. Oh. Alright, everybody done with their sentences? Does anyone have one that they really want to share? No? Yeah? Yeah?
Sitting around may sound like a fun job, but it does not justify the amount of pay that you receive.
Okay. Did you use the word crux?
Oh wait.
Yeah.
The crux of the article was that people who get paid to do absolutely nothing, and I would classify them as lazy.
There you go.
Wow, Brooke.
Sorry.
You're just lazy with work. You can be
Yeah.
like hardworking and unassed.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Alright, if you guys want to go ahead and take out your notes, got a lecture, short one.
Give me just a second to get back to you.
Alright guys, so our topic for today is on latent and insight learning. So basically these are two types of learning that come out of the Gestalt points of view of psychology. And basically the way that latent works is it's learning without necessarily knowing that you're learning, and then insight learning is that like light bulb going off moment. So that's kind of the way that we're going to attack how we learn today. So our essential question is, are we aware of when and what we are learning? So can we control when our brains are learning? Can we control when we're taking in information? And are we aware of what that information even is? Are there things that we're learning throughout the day that we're not even aware of? So as I said, latent learning, this is basically knowledge that becomes apparent only when the person has an incentive to display it. So there can be all this stuff that you know in your brain, but if you don't ever show that you know that stuff, we don't really know that you know it. So this is where the term latent learning comes from. And it's learning that takes place by watching, not doing, and there's no, as I said, there's no way to know if this knowledge exists until it's displayed. So one way to think about this is a lot of children have a lot of latent knowledge that's built up in their brains that they don't necessarily know that they have, and mainly we don't know that they have it because they've never had to showcase it. So as children, you guys may have gone to a family member's house, grandma and grandpa's house, aunt and uncle, whatever, and if you rode in the car on your way there, you may have learned the route. So you learned how to get from your house to your family member's house, and you could drive that, you could navigate that path, but since we've never put you in a situation to, we don't know that you know that. So the child has that latent knowledge of how to traverse a path, but until they're forced to do it themselves, we're never going to know. They're never going to showcase that knowledge. Another thing that, something for me, I spent a lot of the first part of the semester just doing some observations. So there's a lot of latent knowledge that I picked up on the classroom. It was stuff that I knew how to do, but I had never done it, so I had never showcased that I had picked up that knowledge. And so what does this tell us about our brains? What does our ability to learn without trying or without having to show it tell us? It tells us that we can construct knowledge in an abstract sense. So a lot of people, they learn through doing, and when we learn through doing, we're constructing knowledge in a very concrete sense. We're going out and we're doing the skill, and we're practicing the skill, and we're creating knowledge that is concrete. We can build upon it with real life situations. But what this tells us is that we don't need that concrete ability, we don't need that concrete experience to construct knowledge. Rather, we can simply construct it abstractly in our brains. We can store information until the right situation arises. So this kind of goes back to what we were talking about yesterday, about how information goes through the stages and gets put into our long-term memory. You know, there might be some things that you learned as a kid, but you don't need to use them until you're an adult. So you can store that information away, and then when the right set of circumstances come up, you can call upon it to fulfill the need. This also tells us that we're constantly learning throughout the day. As I said yesterday, that sensory stage of our memory is constantly being bombarded with info. And some of that info, like most of it, we're not aware of. We're aware of bits and pieces of it, but there's definitely some that we're not aware of that still makes it into our long-term memory. And that is through our latent learning. So basically, this last question is more just like, for you guys, it's abstract, it's not really, I don't think there's a true answer. But I want you guys to think, are there any things that you know how to do that you aren't aware that you know how to do them? So maybe just like, I don't know, and obviously if you're not aware that you know how to do it, you can't like answer this question. It's more just philosophical to think about. But I just want you guys, as you continue on through your day, kind of like always have this in the back of your mind. Oh, what do I know? And never underestimate yourself. You know, don't say I can't do it. Maybe you can. So then the next thing is insight learning. And insight learning refers to the sudden realization of a problem or a sudden solution to a problem without repeated trials or continuous practice. And so basically this is that light bulb moment where, boom, you have the answer. And it's not because you've been working through the solution, you've been trial and error, but rather maybe you try to work on a problem and then you walk away for a bit. And it's at that time where you've walked away, where you're not putting in the effort to try to solve the problem, that the solution becomes apparent. So this is, I always think of Archimedes and his, have you guys heard the story of like Eureka, like his Eureka moment? I don't know, like living in Eureka, is that not like drilled into you guys?
I thought it would be inevitable.
Inevitable?
But
Can somebody tell me what the story of Archimedes and Eureka is? Oh, cool. Alright.
I thought it was Isaac Newton and the apple and
It
gravity.
could be. I always heard it with Archimedes.
Yeah, about the gravity.
Yeah.
How he discovered gravity.
Yeah, I thought he yelled Eureka and ran off.
I
I
always.
don't know if he has Eureka.
I read a book on Isaac Newton just a couple weeks ago.
Well, alright, so the one I was thinking of with Archimedes was where he's trying to solve this problem. He's trying to figure out the volume of a king's crown. And basically he got into his bathtub, and when he got into his bathtub, all the water overflowed. And he said, "Eureka!" and yelled around the town naked. Because he had just discovered how you could figure out the volume of a three-dimensional object. So it's that kind of like, that's insight learning. That is, he's not trying to consciously solve the problem, but something in his life triggers a learning experience. And so then what does this tell us about our brains? Again, we're working with the abstract. This tells us that our brains can problem solve in the abstract. You're not doing the concrete action of trying to solve the problem, and you're not putting in the conscious effort to solve the problem, but rather your brain is working subconsciously, maybe consciously in some aspects, but it's working in the abstract to solve a problem in the concrete. This also tells us that our brains can synthesize new ways of thinking. And this is one of the things that separates humans from all other animals, is our ability to invent and create. Our ability to make something out of nothing to solve a very specific problem. If you think about all the inventions across all human time, they're all designed to solve a very specific problem, and they all are built upon nothing. They all come out of nowhere, and that is because of our creativity, our ability to synthesize new information. And this also tells us that our brains can see items in a new light. We can look at a problem in a different manner than we had before. We can also look at an item and rethink about its purpose. We can rethink the purpose of an item. We can say, this item was built for something, but I'm going to utilize it for something completely different, and in doing so, I'm going to solve the problem. And now this concept of rethinking the purpose of an item is called functional fixedness. And this concept of functional fixedness is going to be, we're going to run an activity tomorrow that basically is like a real world application of this concept of functional fixedness. So for the last part of class, we're just going to kind of like introduce this topic and set up the activity for tomorrow. So I'll say it again, functional fixedness, it is this cognitive bias. It's something that's inside our brains, it's a bias, and it limits us, or it limits how we conceptualize the function or purpose of an object. So the way I think about this, or I think a good example is, for a long time I had this crate. And it's just like a blue crate from Walmart, probably like 2 foot by 1 foot. And basically the purpose of that crate was to hold stuff, right? It's a box. You're supposed to put stuff in it. Well, for the first 5 years that I had that crate, I didn't use it as a crate. I used it as a nightstand. I flipped it up on its side, and I stuck it up against my wall, and it had holes in it, so I could run like the cord for my phone charger and my alarm clock, and I had it all set up. It was wonderful. And for the first 5 years that I owned this crate, it worked fantastically as a nightstand. And that was me looking at the function of this crate, saying this is meant to carry things, but I can use this for a different purpose. So that's just like a quick real-world example of how we think outside the box when it comes to viewing functional fixedness. And now this concept usually becomes apparent when we're forced with an issue that is new or unique. So when we're faced with a problem that has been solved before, we tend to revert to ways of solving that problem that are familiar to us. So this goes back to what I was saying with humanity and creation and invention, right? Every new invention is meant for a very specific problem, and functional fixedness kind of works in the same vein. It's when we're forced to be creative that we're able to overcome functional fixedness. So does anyone have any questions on functional fixedness, as this is going to be like the crux of our activity, of our activity tomorrow? Is there anything I can clear up right now? I know I'll do a little more later on. We all good? Alright, so just because this is kind of like a new abstract concept, I do have some videos that really showcase this. Is anyone familiar with the 80s TV show MacGyver? Yeah? Yeah, can one of you guys tell us about MacGyver? Yeah.
It's a guy who has a bunch of bad guys he has to face.
Mm-hmm.
Solves it in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Yep. So he's I don't even know what he is. He's like a secret agent, or he's something. That's regardless. But anyway, so it's set in the 80s, and there's all these like bad guys that he's got to fight, and basically he utilizes his mind and invention to like overcome these obstacles. And so in this video clip, what we're gonna see is MacGyver has been like caught by the bad guys, and he's holed up in this little prison cell, and he's gonna utilize the materials that are inside the prison cell to like help him escape. And so it's just a good like real world application of how we can overcome functional fixedness to solve a problem.
Alright, think, Guyver, think. Not too much to work with in here. My arm's throbbing pretty good from that shot. Come on, Mac. Time's a wasting.
I am sure this is a secure line.
Yes, Herr Commander.
We are in possession of the international courier.
No.
We'll have it very shortly.
One time when I was a kid, I built a slingshot out of a couple of broken hockey sticks and an old inner tube. And you know, no matter how hard I practiced, I just could never miss my neighbor's window. The problem with this slingshot is I only get one shot.
Can't you do anything without eating?
I'm listening. I'll hear him when he starts seeing things and yelling about
I had running water and an electrical socket nearby. It could be a heck of a combination if I put them together right.
it? I don't know. Smells like water. MacGyver, Nielsen said he might try something like this.
Come on.
All right. So basically from that, we just get like a quick example of how you can use, like, how MacGyver utilized the tools around him to solve a very specific problem. Does anyone have any questions? No? All right, I have one more video. Are you guys familiar with the Food Network show Chopped? You guys know what Chopped, where they get like really weird ingredients and then have to like rethink them? So I just have a clip just showing one of the opening scenes from Chopped. And so this is just another example of having to overcome functional fixedness, but this is just in regard to foods. So.
The challenge: create an unforgettable meal from the mystery items hidden in these baskets before time runs out. Who will win the $10,000 prize? And who will be shocked? Welcome, chefs. Here are the rules. There are 3 rounds: appetizer, entree, and dessert. Each course has its own basket of mystery ingredients, and you must use every ingredient in the basket in some way. Also available to you, our pantry and fridge. Each round is timed. When the clock runs out, our judges will critique your dishes on presentation, taste, and creativity. If your dish doesn't cut it, you will be chopped. Chefs, please open your baskets. And we have banana chips, frozen grilled chicken breasts, candy cane beets, cherry jelly beans.
The beets are the only thing in there that's fresh. I'm a little nervous because I'm not.
Alright, so from that we just see it's just another example of a real world scenario where we're forced to think outside the box and combat our functional fixedness. So as I said, tomorrow we're going to be running this like activity that's going to like kind of get us to overcome our functional fixedness, and what we're going to be doing is I'm going to bring in some vinyl records and we're going to be building our own record players. So you guys are going to get a bag of materials, just like some household materials, and then you're going to be asked to build a device that's going to allow you to play that vinyl record. Okay? It's cool. I promise, like, I've done this before. I had fun doing it, so I thought maybe you guys could. But anyway, so, how many of you guys are familiar with, like, vinyl records? Does anyone know or ever, like, played a vinyl before? Only one? Yeah, I was kind of worried about that. So, the last thing we're going to do today is I'm just going to show you guys a clip about how vinyl works. I know I ran this experiment, or this activity with some of my classmates, and they were confused about how vinyl works, so they said it would have been helpful to know. So we're just going to watch, it's just like a 4 or 5 minute clip, kind of telling you guys how vinyl works, and I think that'll help you when you're planning how to develop your device tomorrow. So that's the last thing we're going to do today. Give me a minute. You guys can go ahead and put your stuff away if you'd like while I get this pulled up.
Yeah, we need to pass this with
either really easy or
Alright guys, so here's just some information about vinyl.
That and the craft beer drinking beard whacker hipsters of Shoreditch
way over 100 years since the technology's invention, some people still consider them the only proper way to listen to music. But how do they work? First things first, how does the music get onto the record? Now, I'm sure you've heard that sound travels in waves. Sound waves are simply vibrations in a medium, which is usually air, but sound also travels through vibrations through water and glass and other mediums too. And those vibrations, those waves, make their way to our ears where they then pass those vibrations into the tiny bones that are in there. They set some of the fluid in your ear vibrating and eventually send electrical signals to the brain. Okay, got it. But at the simplest level, a record is an analog recording of those sound waves. In practice though, successfully recording those waves is very different from successfully playing them. One of the first records ever made had no way to play back the music. It was the recording of a song, thought to be the first recording of any human voice at all. 10 seconds of folk singing recorded visually on what the inventor, Edouard Leon Scott de Martinville, called his phon autograph. Martinville was a Parisian typesetter. He used an oil lamp to blacken sheets of paper, then placed a horn to focus the sounds of the lady singing towards them. Her sound waves moved in his stylus up and down, etching the vibrations into the paper. It's a really lovely idea, although it then took about 150 years for anyone to translate those scratches back into sound and play the lost song. Today, recording is not usually done direct disc in that way. Instead, musicians first record and mix their music until they're happy with it, often on tape. But then it's kind of similar. The mixed sound is played into a record-cutting lathe in real time. And the sound waves move a needle head, which then cuts grooves into a thin lacquer disc. The depth of those grooves representing the shape of the sound waves. The next steps to make the final record get kind of complicated here, to be honest, but let's just simplify. That lacquer copy is then used to make a stamper, a perfect negative image of the record made of metal, with ridges instead of grooves. And then the stamper is loaded into a hydraulic record press, pushed into soft vinyl, and then that becomes the record itself. And these stampers can undergo up to 100 pounds of pressure, and serious audiophiles will listen out for the slight differences from records made with fresher stampers. Okay, so that's how you capture those sound waves and how you make the record. But how does playing them turn those ridges back into sound? Well, the way records are played has not really changed much since the first phonographs and gramophones. You get a needle, and it's usually tipped with diamond or something else very, very hard, and it rests on the record as it spins on a turntable. And the grooves contain the image of the sound waves. If you look at them under an electron microscope, they actually look like tiny bumpy valleys. And I'm going to link to a video showing that in the footnotes below. Now, as the record starts to spin, the needle moves across those little grooves. And that moving needle actually moves a small magnet inside a coil of wire, which induces a fluctuating electric current. And the current travels to a speaker, which then converts those electrical signals back into kinetic movement, vibrating the speaker cone to reproduce the sound waves of that original song, which then travel to your ear, recreating the song in all its glory. So, it's time for the important question. Does vinyl really sound better?
Alright, we don't really care about that part. But, so basically, what I wanted you guys to get out of this is, on a vinyl record, you'll see that there's grooves, and they go in circles and circles, and on those grooves is where the little sound ridges are. And to get that sound out, you're going to use a needle or something sharp, and that's what is going to, the sound travels through the needle, I guess. That was what my classmates were confused about. But anyway, does anyone have any questions on the vinyl or the activity that we're going to be running tomorrow? Yeah?
Are we doing this all together?
No, so we're going to be breaking up into groups. It'll probably be groups of 3 to 5 in that area. And then so each group will then be creating their own device to play the record. So, and then we're not, at the end there, he kind of talked about how the needle goes, there's magnets and it creates an electrical current. That part we won't be reproducing. This is all going to be man or woman powered. So there's going to be no electrical components and no magnets. But basically that, and then that sound moves in waves. That sound can move through items as well. Something you'll need to know. That's a good question. Any other questions? No? Awesome. All right. Well, you guys have a few minutes. If you guys have homework from other classes or need to work on your advertisement activity.
Yep,
So.
that's a good reminder, you have your commercial projects are due on Monday, so, sound good?
Logan had a good idea, I think this new door inside. Like the all-purpose room door